Welcome to Don't You Two Read, a podcast where two sisters talk about all things books.
We're just two girls who found ourselves texting about books on a daily basis and thought, why not turn on a mic?
We'll be talking about our recent reads, a weekly bookish topic, and what we're looking forward to reading next.
So grab a cup of coffee and maybe even a snack and be prepared to take down your TBR and add a lot to it as we talk all things books.
Hi, this is Hilary, and I just wanted to let you know right at the top that I had some audio issues at the beginning of this episode. I kept getting disconnected and didn't realize that the audio quality was also messing up. It does improve, so hang in there. It's not you, it's me. And I think I've solved the issue I've been having, and I will be recording in a different room from now on. Thank you for bearing with us as we learn how to do this. I'm Hilary, and I'm a mom in Oklahoma, and I'm trying to beat the heat by reading of colder places.
And I'm Hannah, a stay-at-home mom in Texas who deleted a ton of books off my TBR.
Today in the episode, we'll be sharing all of our thoughts on our bookish icks, or things that we don't like in books. And later, we'll talk about the short list. But before that, Hannah, how was your reading week? I guess did you delete them by reading things or by not DNFing things?
I went through my Goodreads want to read folder and just deleted a bunch of stuff off.
Yeah, that can be satisfying.
I do it every now and then. I don't have it on schedule to do it, but I do it every now and then where I will go and just delete things. Sometimes it's like if I've had the opportunity to read it multiple times, like through Libby, and I still have not read it, then I'm like, clearly this is just not happening. So I'll delete it. And then I can always add it back later. Or if I've seen reviews for things, like since adding it that I trust or whatever, different things, I will delete it. So my TBR on Goodreads, I feel like it's under 100, which I feel is pretty low.
Yeah, I think mine right now has several hundred. But I've seen some people in the thousands, so I thought I was doing pretty good, but
Oh my, that stresses me out to even think about.
yeah.
And so you said you've been reading some winter books?
Yeah, well, I think I'll bring the one of the books to the show next week, but I've been reading a series that's set in Alaska, and so that has been nice because it's like the snow and part of it is in Christmas, and so it's not a Christmas book, but it's just, in that time. Anyway, it's set in Alaska, and so it's snowing, it's cold, which is nice because it's like I think today was 103 in Oklahoma, and our heat index was like, I don't remember, 107 or 8. So it has been nice to read about not baking in the sun.
I feel like I could go either way, but I don't like feeling hot, and I feel like hot books that really emphasize heat just makes me feel even more hot in real life, and I don't love that. So,
Okay, now we're going to talk about books that we've recently read. Hannah, what's your first book?
for my first book this week, I'm going with a book that I read last week that I felt was a great summary book. This one will be like the hot summary book, not a winter one. This is But He's My Fake Fiance by Annah Conwell. When romance author Sloane is caught off guard at the gym and needs a fake date for the wedding of her ex-boyfriend, she grabs the first man that she sees. To make things even more awkward, the guy that she grabs is Grayson Carter, a man that she turned down for a date when they first met because she was in a relationship at the time. Grayson has been into Sloane since the moment that they met, but he has kept his distance after finding out that she had a boyfriend at the time. Fast forward, and now he's all too eager to be pulled into her universe, not only as a fake date, but a fake fiance. Okay, I want to first say this is book 3 in a standalone series. So they can all be read as standalone. If you care about reading books in order, which I personally do, this comes third. And the series is about 4 brothers. So that's the first thing I want to say. This one was a lot of fun. Sloane's personality really resonated with me because she's very introverted and She likes to be inside. She likes to play things safe. She does like to have fun, but she does need a little bit of a push. And Grayson complemented her personality so well. He is fun loving, he's very social, he's the life of the party, and he definitely challenges Sloane to get out of her comfort zone. But he was so sweet and understanding during the moments where she was growing and where it was hard for her to have fun. He was really understanding, which I felt was very, very cute and very sweet. I liked their dynamic, and I liked to see the healthy balance of a shy girl who is still introverted, but who can try new and fun things. And I felt like he just helped her come out of her shell, and I loved it. So, if you enjoy fake dating, lighthearted romances with some depth, a very summery, beachy feeling, all in a closed door romance, pick this one up. And that's But He's My Fake Fiance by Anna Conwell. Okay, Hilary, what's your first book?
Okay, my first book is The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. This book is a standalone crime fiction book by the same author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is one of my all-time favorite books. This is a YA novel, and here's what it's about. 16 years ago, Rachel Price disappeared without a trace. Security footage shows her walking into a mall with her 2-year-old daughter, Belle, and the cameras don't ever show them leaving. A couple hours later, Rachel's car is found running, abandoned on a snowy roadside with Belle in the back seat. But Rachel is nowhere to be found, and Rachel is never seen again. 16 years later, Belle and her dad, Charlie, are filming a documentary about the case. Did Rachel die? Was she abducted? Her family has been silent until now. Miraculously, shortly after the documentary starts filming, Rachel reappears, shaken but very much alive. This obviously turns the documentary on its head. Everyone is overjoyed that Rachel is back, but Belle is suspicious and thinks Rachel is lying. She is determined to uncover the truth no matter what it takes. I will say that I really enjoyed my time reading this. It was fun and twisty, and it has a classic Holly Jackson ending, which I know that you read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. That series is crazy, crazy endings.
Yeah.
So it was definitely outlandish, and I had a lot of unanswered questions. So was it a perfect novel? No, but it was a fun summer book. I do want to note that while this is marketed as YA, there is still quite a bit of cursing, so keep that in mind. I saw someone on Goodreads mention that they counted like over 100 F words. So if
Oh
that
my
bothers you,
goodness.
that like it's in there. There's a lot in there. And it's YA, so it was a little surprising to me. It was a lot. Um, I enjoyed A Good Girl's Guide to Murder more, but I still really like this one. It was worth checking out if you want a quick, twisty book with a documentary element. That's The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson.
That one is standalone, right?
Yeah, I did like that part. It's just like one and done. It was not short. It was over 400 pages,
Mm.
um, which I was okay with. Like if it needs to be that long to get the story across, that's fine. But yeah, it's it. You're done after that first book. So I got it on a Kindle deal, so I think I spent like $1 or something. So I thought it was a good summer book, but like was it my favorite? No, but I still really enjoyed it.
I've been curious about that one. Not, I had no idea what it was about, but I did know the author from the other series you mentioned, and that was the reason why I would be interested in reading it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. What's your second book?
Okay. My second book is How to Find Love When You're Weird by Camilla Evergreen. Okay, the summary. A year ago, Ellen's father decided that she won't receive her inheritance unless she's in a stable relationship by her 26th birthday. Ellen lets the ever important deadline slip through the cracks, and now she has less than 2 months to find love if she wants to inherit her family's cottage home. The only man who has given her the time of day was a giant tattooed bar owner who walked her home on her 21st birthday when she was blasted drunk. When he randomly enters her life again, they strike up a friendship, and he convinces her to use him as a fake relationship. Though Ellen starts to see her gentle giant friend as maybe something more, She absolutely refuses to date anybody who drinks, much less someone who owns a bar. Plus, no matter what happens, Ellen is insistent to follow point one on her fake dating outline: do not fall in love. This is a grumpy sunshine satirical romance with a neurodivergent lead on the road to self acceptance. Okay, so this book, it was really hard for me to summarize because it is so different from anything that I have ever read. Camilla Evergreen, the author, she writes all of her books with this very quirky vibe that is, it's just so hard to describe like the plot because it's so wild. It's a wild time. But Ellen, the main character of this book, she has several issues going on that do isolate her from society. So Ellen has depression, she has anxiety, and she also has executive dysfunction and POTS disease. So, and I actually learned a lot, like unintentionally through reading this book because I just did not really know what any of the, like, not any of those, but like executive dysfunction and POTS, I didn't really know what that was. And so I did Google and like figure all these things out. But basically, like she says OCD and POTS disease is where like you can pass out randomly. So anyway, she has a lot of different issues going on that do isolate her from society. So when she does decide to find a relationship before the deadline to inherit her house, she starts to go to speed dating events to make a connection with someone. And it is sad to see her struggle through that because, again, she has like a lot of trouble connecting with other people. But it was very inspiring and endearing to see her throughout this process and to see how she doesn't give up trying, even when life is extra challenging for her in certain areas. The friendship between her and Hayes was adorable, and I smiled the entire time while reading this book. This was a reread for me, and it's one of my favorite books, probably like favorite books that I've ever read. I love it. If you enjoy He Falls First, neurodivergent representation, lots of humor, and unique and quirky romances that will feel different from anything you've ever read, pick this one up. And that's How to Find Love When You're Weird by Camilla Evergreen. Okay, so let's jump into book two. I'm so excited. Are we getting a spicy take or are we getting a happy take?
This is a lukewarm take. This is Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. This is for real my last NetGalley book to talk about for now. Um, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this book, so let's talk about it. The book is about this. Gwen Jackson and Xander Thorne are not friends. Xander is arrogant, perpetually late, and annoyingly talented. His parents are accomplished musicians, so Xander never had to work for his position in the Pops orchestra. He was just given his spot. Gwen has had to work for her spot in the Pops orchestra. She learned to play the violin at 11 and played in subway stations to earn money in high school. They end up at the same wedding, and Gwen is humiliated when she discovers that Xander doesn't even know who she is, and he didn't know that he played with her at the orchestra. So when Gwen is offered the role of first violin at the Pops, she is elated. She must now learn to play face to face with her antagonist, Xander Thorne himself. Obviously, this is a romance, so Gwen and Xander must face the fact that they are musical rivals, but are very attracted to each other physically and musically. I loved the musical element in this book. I've heard some people say that they've struggled to follow that element because they've had no musical experience. I do have that. I'm not like a violin player, but I am involved with music a lot. So it appealed to me. I didn't have any issues there. I loved it. There were times when Gwen and Xander could not communicate their feelings with words, but their music communicated for them. So I was obsessed with that element. But I can see how that would not be for everybody. Um, where the book fell short for me, we went about 50% into the book with basically no spice, only tension. Once the spice started, it did not stop. It started to not propel the story along. There was just so many sections of it randomly throughout the book after that. Also, I would skip ahead and end up feeling lost because things would happen in those sections. So I wouldn't say that they're skippable. I will say they had some conversations interspersed with the spicy scenes
Mm,
that I felt like they could have had the conversation not during that, but she chose to have a conversation like, hey, let's define the relationship in the middle of this spicy scene. And
mm.
so if you skip it, then if when you skip it, you're like, wait, what happened? Like
Yeah, you're
something clearly
missing
happened.
plot.
Yeah, but you're just like, I don't know. But the spice itself didn't really add to this. We didn't have to know in detail anything of what happened, if that made sense. I hope that
Yeah.
makes sense. You can DM me if it doesn't, but I will say it does get pretty spicy to me for my taste. For me, it was too much on that end. I love the musical aspect, but it was too much spice for me. And that's Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto.
Okay, this is it a sequel or is it standalone?
It's a standalone. So Julie Soto, I am not sure of her username, but she was originally a fanfic author of not books. This is my third week in a row of works of art. Um, and a publisher bought them, and they so her first one was Forget Me Not. That was originally a fanfic book, and she kind of like revised it, I believe, for to be published
Hmm.
traditionally. And then this one also was originally written as a Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic, and she revised it and made it, traditionally published. So I didn't know that at first, but I think she's a really good author. I love her writing. She just goes pretty spicy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just a little much for my preference.
So they were both fanfic
Yeah,
before?
and her
That's so
next
crazy.
book is going to be another fanfic. And it's gonna be like magic. So I think it might be a Harry Potter fanfic redone. So I don't know. We'll see. I think I might
Mm.
I read this one as an arc, so I felt obligated to go through it, and review it because
That was
that is
me.
my
That
yeah,
was me last week.
I do feel a big obligation to finish arcs, but
Yes.
um I will not request her next one as an arc. I will wait till it comes out and see like
Yeah.
other people's reviews if I will be continuing on. So our next, I'm gonna jump in here. Hannah and I talked because this episode is going to air right at the end of July. And so Hannah and I are huge Christmas in July people. And I know a lot of people aren't, but if you are, we decided our third book would be a Christmas book that we just wanted to share just in case you wanted to just sneak one in at the end of July, or if you wanted just to add one to your list because Christmas is coming, just so you know, it is coming before you realize. So, Hannah, what is your Christmas book that you wanted to talk about?
Okay. When we decided to do a Christmas in July book, I went deep into my files, guys. I always say that Christmas is my favorite genre, and it's true. I read a lot of Christmas, and I've loved a lot of Christmas. So picking only one was a huge challenge. But the one that I went with is one that I felt was very unique, and it's a book that I do still think about often. This is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. All right, here we go. On Christmas Eve, 5 years ago, Holly was visited by three ghosts who showed her how selfish and spoiled she had become. They tried to convince her to mend her ways. She didn't, and then she died. Now she's stuck working for the top secret company Project Scrooge as the latest Ghost of Christmas Past. Every year they save another miserly grouch. Every year, Holly stays frozen at 17 years old, while her family and friends go on living without her. So far, Holly's afterlife has been miserable, but this year, everything is about to change. Okay, I read this book a few years ago, and Hilary told me to read it actually. And I remember feeling like I could not put it down. It made me feel a lot of feelings, all over the spectrum while reading it. I felt anger, disappointment, hope, excitement, and I even felt some heartbreak. It gives a whole new light on the Christmas Carol, which I love. It's a unique retelling where the original title is a central part of the story and is referred to directly throughout this novel. The plot really did keep me guessing, and the journey is eccentric for sure, but I do think it's worth the read. If you're looking for a festive read that will keep you guessing till the very end, pick this one up. And that's The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand.
I did like this one. I almost thought about bringing it, and because I was like, there's no way Hannah will bring this.
That is so
But it's
funny.
funny. I feel like we switched in our recommendations this week.
I thought Hillary's gonna think I'm bringing a rom-com, and I'm like, I'll bring something she'll never see coming. Um, this book, it's funny because I rated it 4 stars. Like it wasn't a book that I felt necessarily that it would like resonate with me as much as it did, but like the fact that I still think about it 2 years later, I feel is telling that I'm like, no, no, like it was unique enough that I really feel like you should read it. And I do plan to reread it and I plan to make Joshua read it too.
I bought that book from my local bookstore because I was like, I'm keeping this on my shelves with A Christmas Carol, and it's a good one. It's a good book, and I'm sure we will talk about it a little bit more as we approach like in November,
Yeah.
because for us, Christmas season starts November 1st.
Yes.
So just get ready.
Okay, so now I need to know what you picked.
Okay, so it's funny. I feel like this is the first book like this I bring. I don't feel like I read a lot of books like this. I brought Merry Xmas by Courtney Walsh. Courtney is well loved by us. Have we talked about her on this podcast yet? I don't think so.
No, not yet.
But we read I think we both like her a lot.
Yeah.
Um I've read quite a few of her books, not all. I'm slowly going through them, but I do plan to talk about more of her books eventually. But I think Courtney shines in her Christmas books. Here's what this one is about. Marin hasn't been home for Christmas in 8 years. 8 years ago, when the love of her life, Max, dumped her. She never got over it, so she has avoided her hometown like the plague. When her job as a news reporter requires her to go home to do a segment on Home for the Holidays, Marin is shocked when Max answers her parents' door. Turns out the viewers are hooked by the chemistry of Max and Marin, and now she's forced to play nice for the camera and just try to survive this Christmas. We have fake dating, one of my favorite tropes, which is funny because Hannah also mentioned two other books with fake dating today, and this is a second chance romance, which I know is not for everybody. Some people are really bothered by that, but I love a chance romance if it's done right. The dialogue is perfect. The small town Christmas setting is perfect. This is actually a Christmas book, but I think it would be good to read anytime. It's romance, but more. This is a story of forgiveness, love, and family. I had butterflies, I had all the feels, and I guess I'm going to try to be a Courtney Walsh completist because this was gold. P.S. When I read this line, I think I died. It's probably not going to be fake for me. So that's Merry Xmas by Courtney Walsh, which is funny. I will say this because I had to go, like Hannah said, go through way back when I read this book. Um, I loved this book. It was like 5 stars. I know it wasn't necessarily 5 stars for Hannah. Um, do you remember why?
I did like it. It did feel very much
Okay.
like a Hallmark movie to me.
Yeah, I loved this one. There's something about it that
Yeah,
I
you
loved
did.
it. Yeah, I don't know. It just resonated with me a lot. I bought this one as well. So this one's
Yeah.
on my shelf. So I loved it.
Have you read her Cross Country Christmas?
Yeah,
I like both, but that one was like my
that's
jam.
the other one. I bought that one as well.
I know, I'm like, we need to stop because we're gonna make this whole episode Christmas.
It's
So,
like, we love you, Courtney. You're the best. Okay, now it's time for our topic of the day. We've talked about too many books that we love. So today we're talking about our bookish icks, or things that we don't love in books. Hannah told me that she had a long list, so I had to really try to get my negativity into gear, which I'm sure my husband would say was easy.
Yeah.
But about books, it was hard for me. It was hard for me to think of a longer list, but I think I got a good list. So, do you want to just start us off and then we can bounce back and forth,
Yeah.
see how it goes?
Okay, and then we'll see if we have any in common. I bet
Yeah.
we don't. I bet yours are mature answers. Here we go. Boss and employee relationships or any sort of power dynamic. If you are directly someone's boss making choices about employment, I just do not want to read about it in a romance. And oh, I also want to say my disclaimer. I have read books with all of these things that I don't like that I still like I can still enjoy a book with any of these elements that I don't love. So I want to say that I do feel like writing like plays a big role in it too. So I don't just hate a book if it has one of these things. Okay. So there's my first one. Boss employee relationships.
Okay, I have a question. Do you like coworkers,
I don't mind
like an
coworkers.
office romance, or you just don't
Yeah.
like the
No,
the person in charge?
yes, I like workplace romance. I think it's fine. I don't like, yeah, when somebody directly has power over like their paycheck or like
Yeah.
their schedule, I don't like it.
I'm not going to say the book that it is, but there is a book that Hannah and I both read that I was like, I love this book so much. And she's like, I hate that he is her boss. And it's funny because I think I'd almost finished the book and I was like, oh, it didn't bother me. I don't know, but I know Hannah was like deeply bothered by it.
Because again, I feel like it's rules and then but that's it too. That I have to say that that is part of it. If the book says, if they say, "Oh yeah, it's fine." Like if they say,
HR doesn't care.
yes, like Spanish love deception, they fill it in with HR or whatever. Like there are books that they do that and they're like, "We're gonna just fill it in with HR," blah blah blah. Cool. I'm totally fine. It's whenever it's like we're not supposed to be together and we're gonna do it anyway.
So like forbidden romance.
Specifically in this, yes, forbidden romance. Because, like, I like other types of forbidden romance, but no, in this dynamic, no, I do not like it. And I will probably, like, dock a star.
Okay, mine is not, it's somewhat related. It's so funny what we care about and what we don't, because that doesn't bother me as much, I don't think. But I put teacher-student relationships.
Okay, everybody should have that on their list.
No, I don't mean children. I mean like adults. I
What do you
I mean,
mean?
no, like, okay, I'm specifically thinking, I'm talking
Like
about
college?
yes, like the love
Okay.
hypothesis. Do you remember my
Yeah.
feeling? I did like that book, but there was one scene. Skip ahead 15 seconds if you don't want to know anything about this book. It's not a spoiler, but there's a scene where he's like the professor and she's the student, and they're at a seminar, and there aren't enough seats, of course. And so the teacher is sitting there, and he's like, "Here, sit on my lap." And she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go sit on the teacher's lap." And I'm like, ugh.
That is pretty despicable.
I was like, I hate that. That is like what started my hate. But okay, I'll say since then, Allie Hazelwood has just taken the brakes off and just gone for it since then. That is mild, but um
Oh boy.
I don't know. It just bothers me. It just grosses me out. I don't know. Even in college, I don't know why. I'm like, wait till the class is over. That's how I feel. Or like maybe it's like what you said, because I'm like, I feel like it's shady because they influence your grades, like how
Mm-hmm.
can you
Yeah. How can you
it,
not have bias?
yeah, like they are your direct supervisor
Yeah, it's
in
weird.
that essence. Like it's not if it's a professor at the college, that's different to me.
Yeah, yes, me too. I feel like that too. I feel like
Or
it's
if
not the
you're
same.
like, I kind of like him, but we're, in the class, but like nothing happens until you're out of the class. That's fine. I don't know. I can't
Yeah.
explain to you why that bothers me, but the boss one doesn't that much.
Yeah, I don't know either, because to me they both bother me.
But I guess I'm okay with it if, like I just said, the direct supervisors, that's a little bit different to me than like I'm head of the company versus I'm your manager and I make your hours and I give you your reviews and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I who can explain the heart?
Oh. Okay, my next one is Insta Love.
I thought you were gonna say incest.
No. Oh my God. Again, that should be on everybody's list. Insta lust. I feel both. I don't know what's worse, actually, because insta lust, I feel like it's a physical attraction, and that I guess makes sense to me. Insta love, insta love. I'm gonna stick with that one. The worst. Whenever they're like, oh, like it comes with like inherently knowing that person when they don't know them. Like they're like, oh, he's so kind and so generous, and I'm like, you don't know that. Like, I'm not saying he's not, but I'm like, why do you just met this man and then now we're in love with him, and I don't like it. So if someone ever says that in a trope, I respect it and I will not read it because I know that I don't like it. So there's that. Next.
Okay, on a different note, suicide.
Oh my.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I just feel uncomfortable.
Does this happen often?
Yes. Do you not see that? I see that on triggers a lot.
It's
Like
probably
on
that I'm
the
reading
type of books I
rom-coms.
read. Yeah. Yeah, because there'll be books sometimes like on Storygraph and they're like, hey, I think you'd like this book, but
Yeah,
it
you
has
mentioned
heavy
that.
warnings of suicide. I'm like, oh no, I'm out. I don't like it. I don't like if that's like, and like you said,
Mm.
there are books sometimes that I'm like, didn't I do that book last week, The Woman on the Ledge?
Mm-hmm.
That I was okay with. I liked it. I liked that story. But I guess I don't like the suicide like rumination
Mm.
stuff. That bothers me. Like it just I don't know. It's very it should like you said it should bother you, but I don't
Yeah.
want to read about it. I don't know. It's just and it's like so dark and so heavy
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm sure we all do. We all know people that have committed suicide and it's just like ugh, I don't like it. So,
Yeah.
that's one. Like if that's the main topic is suicide and especially like I'll say this about other stuff like it's not viewed as negatively as it should be. For example, like 13 Reasons Why.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read the book. I watched the series, but how that is like I don't know, you get to the end of it and you're like, I think this should have been negatively
It
shown.
romanticizes
Yeah.
something for especially like if we're talking about that. But yeah, you have to be careful with the audiences because things can romanticize things, especially like if it's YA or for younger audiences, then yeah. I mean, but me as an adult, I would not want to read that. We already know this. So
Yeah, it just I don't know. I don't like it and it bothers me if that's a central plot point. Again, I there are exceptions, but as a rule, I'm usually not wanting to read a story about someone that's wanting to kill themselves. So that's my
wow, what a downer. Okay, next one for me is unlikable characters, which feels, again, like that feels like, well, duh, who wants that? Actually, I feel like a lot of people can really enjoy books that have unlikable characters. I have a hard time, like I do, I'll be honest. If a character is just like, if I don't know. And it's like, well, what makes them unlikable? There's several things, but like if they're unlikable and the bonus, if there's no voice of reason or like there's no growth, no justice, like if there's like not, I'm like, no. If there is someone who is unlikable in the beginning and if they have those elements where there's change or there's like reflection or there's acknowledgement, then I'm okay with it. But if there is not, I don't enjoy that type of plot.
my next one is infidelity as a main line, specifically when it is glorified. Like if it is shown the whole time as like this wonderful choice and this is just the best thing ever or like I think people just call it a cheating trope now
Yeah.
like, but I don't like it. I don't like it. Like you're with your spouse and then you're like, I've met the love of my life and there's my soulmate. And I'm like, ugh, I don't like it.
Do you
Not
feel
for
like
me.
that with love triangles? Or do you just not read like romance enough to like know?
I'm trying to think of a love triangle book that I have read. There are exceptions. Like
Yeah.
I'll say Daisy Jones and the Six, but Daisy Jones and the Six is not a romance. I would not say like it is specifically written as a documentary type of book. Like we are depicting what happened in the story.
That book would be on my list.
Yeah, which I love that book.
I'm like,
Hannah does not.
everything on that book would be on this list.
Yeah, I loved that book. But I don't know, love triangles. I don't think it bothers me as much. But yeah, if you're like deeply invested with two men and refusing to make a choice, yeah, that does bother me. Like I'll say, for example, Spark of the Everflame kind of has a love triangle, but that doesn't bother me. Like obviously it bothers you because you're like, there's clearly one choice over the other, but it's not like she's like, I'm actively dating two men.
Hmm.
That doesn't, I don't feel like that is happening. And she does eventually make a choice. Anyway, I feel like I don't know what I'm saying about anything.
Okay. My next one is too much silliness. And I don't know what the line is. I don't. A perfect example. This is in rom-coms, I would say. This is when this happens. Like people are slipping and falling. And so sometimes I can think that it's funny if it's like small moments. But there's sometimes where it's too far, where I can't even figure out like the logistics of what's happening. I'm like, what is this? Like hands flying, drinks are falling, like nonsense. Or like raccoon is on a leash and I'm like what is this? I don't like it and I know a lot of people do. A lot of people think it's cute and funny and I just don't. So I'm a Scrooge and I'm sorry.
Okay. We just have completely different answers, but that's okay. My next one is a sociopath's perspective. That's like the key perspective in a book. I don't like it. I don't want to know about how you want to peel someone's skin off of them, and it grosses me out. I, and it's funny because I think people that know me are like, "You'd like this book. It's really sick and twisted," and I'm like, "No, I don't know. I don't think so."
Did you ever read Skin by Ted Decker?
Yes, that's
That's exactly what I think of when you
yes. Like
say
you
that.
read it and you're like. Ugh,
Yeah, you're
I
like, I
feel
feel gross.
yeah. I don't like if it's a little bit of it, that's fine. But if we're talking about like a thriller, if it is a thriller specifically from the point of police, detectives, even if it's like an amateur detective, I'm okay with that. The I'm getting in the mind of the killer is like I sat outside her house for an hour and watched her make dinner and I'm like, oh no, I'm out. Like I don't like this at all. And I'm like, someone get this person. I don't like it. And I can think of several books that do that. It's just I'm a different person than I used to be in college. And I think in college I used to be like, this is edgy. And now I'm like, nope, don't like it. I'm out.
Okay, next one. Celebrity romance. I think it's so funny, our list, and how there's like, you can just tell what we mostly read based on our list. Celebrity romance, I don't really have a fancy answer other than I feel like maybe I don't relate and I just think it's silly. There I go, back into silly territory. But I'm like, you have paparazzi, and I don't know. I can't really get invested. So, celebrity romance. Next.
Back in the other direction. I don't love villain monologues at the end of a
Oh, where
story.
they tell everything.
Yes, like
Yes.
sometimes, not always, okay? But a lot of times it feels like maybe you didn't explain it well
Mm-hmm.
throughout the book. Like maybe you didn't construct your story strongly to where it's obvious. Like, ah, I got it. A book that does this extremely well, I think, is Where the Crawdads Sing. She does not have a whole monologue or a whole like let me explain everything that just happened. It's like a few sentences and you're like, "Oh, wow, like everything just made sense. And it could
Hmm.
go back and reread and see how she set up the whole ending. But a lot of times authors don't do that. And so they're like, how was it you? And they're like, well, first I made this evil plan and I hid all this stuff. And then I did this. And then I got you to like me. And then I poisoned him. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, no, pages and pages. I'm like, okay, I'm over it.
There's like several books I can immediately think of that do this.
A lot of them do.
Literally, Crescent City does this. A lot of
Yeah.
books do this. I agree. I don't love it. I'm always like, what? Who's gonna just say all these things? Like, why? Why would you admit to all this?
Yeah. They're like, and I killed her. I did. And I did it by
Yeah.
drowning her. And I'm like, no, no, I don't like it. Again,
Yes.
time and a place, but I'm okay with someone admitting something. But if there's like a whole story that makes very little sense throughout the book, I don't know. I feel like there are stronger choices to do.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, my next one is Mean Girls. Mean Girls or bullies. I don't like it, especially when they're grown-ups. I'm just like, why are you acting this way? You're a grown adult. I don't understand why you're still being like this. Not that you should be like this as a child, but it makes more sense if you're a child. And as a grown-up, I feel like, again, this is a common thing I see in rom-coms, and I don't like it.
Okay. My next one is a con artist story. If I read that in the description, I'm probably not gonna read the book. I have no good explanation. I just know it's just not my usual cup of tea.
Okay, my last one. When closed door books are too innocent. And this is unpopular probably, but like whenever you have characters that are in their 30s and they won't even say the word
Beep.
deed, which I'm saying that because I don't know if it's explicit and we're not explicit on our podcast. So that's why I'm not saying the word, but three letters. I'm sure you can guess what it is. And they're talking about it and they're like, well, have you ever, you know? And I'm like, you're 35 and you won't say that. Like, it's just like bizarre. And I understand. I think it's because the audience and they don't want to make anyone upset. But I'm like, can we all just say it? Like, I just think that's ridiculous. Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna stop before I dig too deep.
Okay, I had a few more, but I'm gonna cut it down. Um, I'll just say the last thing I know that I don't love novellas, and I think I've just
Mm,
accepted I novellas are for the most part not for me. Every now and then something will surprise me, but I'm just like I don't do novellas. I think they're too short to get the point across.
yeah.
And I run into a lot of, like Hannah said, insta love because you're only talking for 100 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just shouldn't read them and I'll be happier. So,
Yeah.
okay, that I think can wrap up our bookish icks. So now let's talk about the short list or a book that we want to read in the near future. Do you have one?
Yes. Okay. There's a book called Till You Came Along by Larissa Padilla. This is a fade to black second chance romance. I literally saw this on Instagram and it had a tagline that said, what would you do if the love of your life woke up and forgot you? So it's high school rivals. They fall in love and get married. She has an accident and she forgets that they fell in love and got married. So then that's where I guess the story is that like second chance, he has to get her to fall in love again.
Oh, what a disaster.
I know, and she hates him. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it just sounds so good. I really want to read this. Probably in the next week. I really want to read it. She said it's a book that will make you cry. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh no, but I'm ready.
that sounds like What Alice Forgot. Have you read that book or
No,
heard of it?
no.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. She falls off her bike, I think, in a class and then gets up and she is like at a different like 20 years in the future and she's not married anymore.
Oh no.
And she's like, "What the heck happened to my marriage?" And so she's trying to learn like what
Oh
happened to
no.
us.
I'm like, I'm distressed already. Okay, what's yours?
Okay, mine is for real. Like I told Hannah, a fire on my booty to read this. My book is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Um, that is my last Abby book I need to read. And then Hannah and I had talked about maybe we have an episode where we rank our favorite books by an author. And Abby is one that Hannah and I have read everything by, except I have this one. So that has already been on my list. I bought it. Um, I don't know. I just feel like so much pressure because she's one of my favorite authors. And so, but that is on my very, very close list, so we can record that episode soon. So that is mine.
And you need to read it while it's summertime. I mean, you don't need
I
to,
know. No, I know. I want
but
to. I want to.
it's a good vibe. So I liked it. But that's it. I won't say anything else because I want to be like, I hated it. That way I don't make you read it.
I know. I'm a weirdo for sure.
Anyway, I did not hate it, Abby. I loved it.
If you've made it this far and didn't add this episode to your DNF pile, thanks a bunch.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode for the Don't You Two Read podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our recently read books and hopefully getting to know us better as we begin this podcast journey with you guys.
We will be including timestamps in the description on every episode so you can check there for books or products that we mentioned in today's episode.
Be sure to tune in to our next episode when we will be chatting about all things books. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Don't You Two Read Podcast, and you can find me at Hannah Reads.
And I'm at Hilary Reads. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you take a moment to follow us? You can also rate and review us wherever you listen. And as always, please share this with all of your bookish friends.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we hope you have a magical week filled with 5-star reads.